Welcome to the FF Forge. My name is Steve, and today we will just be going through a recap of all of the games from the earlier games on Sunday, and just a few quick things of each game. I'm going to do another new format till I figure out a good groove that works for me that I can get out quickly enough. A couple of points of order. There is a hurricane a-coming here, so just a heads up this week, if things get delayed, might not have power, who knows what might happen, who knows what might not happen. So that would be probably why. And a quick shout out to CC Sharks. I hope I got your name right. Sorry if not. But good job on the James Robinson call. I was having a little bit of a trouble with someone who came in with a start-sit question. Debating between Allen Robinson and James Robinson was my big issue. And you definitely got that one right over me, so good call. Now, on to a few quick things. You can skip through down here to whichever matchups you want. If you wish to skip around to some specific matchups to hear what I have to say on them. Once again, these will be just pretty much quick things and the major injuries, at least on the offensive side of the ball. Here we go. Indianapolis beat Kansas City 20-17. The Kansas City offense did spread the ball around a fair bit, so that did work in their favor as far as what they're probably going to be doing all season. However, they did have to abandon the run game, only getting 2.5 yards per rush. And due to an ineffective offense and that lack of rush game, they totally lost the time of possession battle against Indianapolis. For the most part, the thing that Indianapolis did well today was they played like a talented enough team and who had their backs up against a wall. So they played a nice gritty battle against a, probably better team, and they beat them. That's about all there is to say about that matchup. Going on to Baltimore versus New England. Baltimore beat them 37-26. Yes, New England put up 26 against this Baltimore defense. This defense continues to struggle against the pass. They let up 321 yards to Mac Jones. Mac Jones, by the way, is feared to have a high ankle sprain. So the good thing is no broken bones or anything. He did have some x-rays done after the game. Those came back negative, but high ankle sprain. We'll see how that goes. Yeah. Devontae Parker had the big game in the receiving game, and Ramondre Stevenson outran Damian Harris in the rushing attempts department 12-11. Carolina beat New Orleans 22-14 today, and Mayfield, this offense, they continue to struggle. If you already did not have DJ Moore set as a flex player, sorry, there is a touchdown that was scored by Denver, I believe. Caught my eye there. Interception. Ooh, I have their defense. There we go. Anyways, DJ Moore becomes a flex player at best, really, right now. One that you cannot trust until Carolina gets things figured out. So, he's really just a stash player. You shouldn't be able to get much for him selling him, so he's probably better on the back of your bench if you can hold him. New Orleans lost Jarvis Landry and Michael Thomas in this game. Those are injuries to keep an eye on. I'm not sure how severe they are or are not, but they did not come back into the game, and Olave took advantage of that opportunity. Fantasy points were scored on this offense. They just couldn't get things finished at the end of the day and get points. Chicago beat Houston 23-20, and for Houston, Dameon Pierce came alive today with 80 yards on the ground, 1 touchdown, and 2 receptions for another 20 yards. Brandon Cooks was heavily limited in a tough matchup for him, but he did still receive the most targets out of all of the catching targets, receivers. And for Chicago, the big news comes in the running game. David Montgomery did get injured in the game. He is being considered a day-to-day. Khalil Herbert came in with 157 yards for 2 touchdowns. He also added 2 receptions for another 12 yards, and the passing attack is still very anemic there in Chicago. Moving on to Miami versus Buffalo, where Miami beat Buffalo 21-19 in a game where Chase Edmonds managed to slip into the end zone twice. Waddle made an argument as the more consistent of the receivers there in Miami, and Miami's defense made a statement. Buffalo, as I suspected, did end up leaning on the short passing attack, trying to keep this Miami offense off of the field, but it did not work out, and the offensive coordinator there in Buffalo threw a hissy fit and wrecked those plans. So we are not planning on seeing that same style of attack against a team like Kansas City, for instance. Unfortunately, that will be I assume, a different plan of attack, so we won't be able to use this as a base to say, hey, Isaiah McKenzie, Devin Singletary are going to be monsters in this game. And right towards the end of the game, Josh Allen did appear to have a finger getting relocated. However, after the game, he did say that everything's fine. Miami beat Detroit 28-24 in a bit of a comeback victory there. And Cook did do well with 96 yards on the ground and a touchdown, but he is considered day-to-day with a re-separated shoulder. As far as the passing attack goes, Osborne and Thielen did lead in that department. This offense is struggling to some extent, but I'm not too worried about it. And for Detroit, DeAndre Swift was unable to save his owners with a touchdown this week, once again having less than 10 touches in this game, so until he's in better health, he's looking like a risky start. And a bit of a surprise in the receiving attack for Detroit. Josh Reynolds came in with 6 receptions on 10 targets for 96 yards. I have mentioned that Josh Reynolds was a guy that last year I was tracking, as he was looking pretty darn good in this offense and getting better and better in it every week after he was traded to them from the Rams, right? Pretty sure from the Rams, and Hawk came in with a touchdown to help save his day. Moving on to the Cincinnati and New York Jets game, Cincinnati beat the Jets 27-12. As expected, this was a get-right game for Joe Burrow. All 3 of his primary receivers were fantasy viable. Mixon had a bad day, but he was targeted 7 times, so that is something to keep in mind looking forward. That is a bit of a silver lining as far as his prospects go. For the New York Jets, Breece Hall continues to do fine for PPR and half PPR formats. And Flacco once again threw over 50 times in this game. This offense just could not find the end zone, and the coach oddly settled for 4 field goals. Garrett Wilson was out for nearly a quarter, I believe 2 possessions, but he still managed to have 10 targets in the game, and Elijah Moore also had 10 targets in the game. Moving on to Tennessee versus Las Vegas. Tennessee beat Las Vegas 24-22. For the Titans, Derrick Henry came to life with 85 rushing yards and 5 receptions for 58 yards, as well as a touchdown. In the passing game, Burks only had 2 targets, and Robert Woods had 9 targets. 4 of those he caught for 85 yards. So that passing attack is, I don't know what to tell you. That's what it is. As far as Las Vegas goes, Josh Jacobs did do well on the ground, averaging 5.1 yards per carry. But they were behind early in this game, so he did add 5 receptions for 31 yards, so that is a good thing because he did not have a lot of carries, even though he was efficient on the ground. Waller did not do much with the absence of Renfrow, which was not what I would have expected. And Davante Adams continues to be inefficient, but once again, he does save the day with another touchdown. Matt Collins, their 3rd receiver, feasted for the 2nd time in a row with the absence of Renfrow in this game, probably helping with that, but he is someone we're going to keep our eye on. He's probably a deep stash target for a waiver wire. Then Philadelphia beat Washington 24-8. And as far as Philadelphia goes, who would have thunk Hurts can also throw touchdowns? Smith, Brown, and Goddard all received a touchdown. Goddard was injured in the game. He had an ankle injury, got that taped up, went back into the game. That is something, however, to keep an eye on, as those ankles you can play through it in the game, but then afterwards they're going to swell up on you, and he's not a guarantee for next week, depending on how bad of a sprain it is. On the ground, Miles Sanders was entirely inefficient, but he did have 15 carries, and although this is tough to really say this after they faced Washington of all teams, but Washington's offense was good for the first 2 weeks. We have to take the Philadelphia defense seriously now. And as for Washington goes, as a result of that, Washington's offense came back to earth. It was just an entirely inefficient day for pretty much everyone on that offense, but the good thing is that the targets were there for pretty much everybody except for Logan Thomas. Jacksonville beat the Chargers 38-10. For Jacksonville, it was not a they weren't a bad defense last year, and so they've spent some capital on that in the draft. They've improved it. And similar to the Philadelphia defense, there are reasons that we could not draw this conclusion, like Herbert's injury this week, but we need to start taking the Jacksonville defense seriously, and it was a good day for really everybody on the Jacksonville offense. As far as the Chargers go, Justin Herbert may not be himself for another week or two. I did see a graphic or a Stephania Bell from ESPN gave some information on cartilage injuries, and essentially production is down by like 22% for the first 2 to 3 weeks after an injury like Justin Herbert's. So don't expect him to be the same Justin Herbert for a little while. The rushing attack in this game for the Chargers was completely abandoned. Palmer and Guyton were the receivers that led in the receiving corps with Keenan Allen out, and Guyton left the locker room after the game on crutches. For Green Bay and Tampa Bay, this game was everything we thought it could be. Green Bay did beat Tampa Bay 14-12, and there was not much to take away from the Green Bay offense in this game, or defense for that matter, because of the state of Tampa Bay's offense. But Rodgers had a solid fantasy day, so that was good. And Romeo Doubs is probably a viable option when this wide receiver core is depleted like this, if they're ever depleted like this again. As far as Tampa Bay goes, Russell Gage, on to next week. All we got to say about that. Then for the Rams and Arizona, the Rams beat Arizona 20-12. Arizona did what they do on defense, and they did limit Kupp to 4 receptions for 44 yards. However, Kupp did save the day on a 20-yard rushing attempt, which ended in the end zone. Akers dominated the backfield in a positive game flow, and Higbee continued his solid run here of good production on a decent amount of usage, and L.A. Rob, yuck. As far as Arizona goes, their offense does continue to struggle without their top wideout and without Rondale Moore in there. They lost A.J. Green to a knee injury this game, and he was immediately ruled out after that. Marquise Brown had 17 targets on the day, caught 14 of them for 140 yards. Production cannot exist without usage, which is why you always follow high usage, even if it's not turning into high production. Almost always, once you get to enough examples of a guy getting targeted 14 times and catching 3 targets for 2 yards, then you finally give up on it. But you have to follow the usage, and that is why I had Marquise Brown as a stock option in my steals, stock, and scraps video. You had to play him based on how much usage he was getting based on this matchup, how much usage you would expect him to get in this matchup, and he showed up for you if you followed through with trusting that. Then for Atlanta versus Seattle, Atlanta beat them 27-23 in a game where Atlanta's Patterson held off Algier, outcarrying him 17-6 for 141 yards on those 17 carries and 1 touchdown. Pitts finally produced and had a solid game. However, the end zone still eludes him, and Drake London did get yet another touchdown on, I think, 4 receptions for 58 yards, if I recall correctly. Then for Seattle, Rashad Penny turns in a good day on the ground, averaging 4.7 yards per carry, and he holds off Kenneth Walker for yet another week at least. Travis Homer was injured in this game and quickly ruled out, as far as I recall, so, sorry, he's a real person. I don't say this happily, but good sign for Rashad Penny and Kenneth Walker as far as fantasy goes. Metcalf and Lockett ruled the target share and the targets with 12 and 11 respectively. Both of them turned in solid days, with Detroit coming up for them next week. Look for that to happen again. That being said, I did check out their schedule, and things don't appear to be so pretty for them going forward after next week until after their bye week, which is week 11. So, you may want to look into trading one of them, both of them, whatever. If you are the owner of one of them, you may want to look into trading them after next week if they have a really big week this week, if you wanted to get ahead of that, because it will be a while. And I would say especially so if you find yourself sitting at 1-2 or 0-3, then you should definitely be looking into cashing in on whatever you can from them, because appearances would say it's not going to be so great for them going forward for a while. But that said, after the bye week, things do look pretty nice, so that's coming right into the playoff season there. But you got to make the playoffs first. This thing keeps riding up. All right, thank you very much. I love you. Sorry for the editing's gonna. I didn't think about that. It's gonna really mess with this thing. It's gonna be obnoxious. So I'm learning. Peace out.